When a new Daredevil show was announced, it was just like Christmas. Except instead of Santa, the one bringing the present was a company who treats franchises like how Jada Pinkett Smith treats her husband. Remember when Daredevil was able to prove that Marvel is not just a quippy, flashy amusement park with sky lasers, aliens and cliché villains? Remember when Daredevil was able to prove that Batman is not the only superhero who can be placed in a grounded, mature, dark story without losing heroic integrity? Yeah, that was almost 10 years ago, and it was 7 years ago when one of my favorite shows was cancelled and the property went to Disney. I honestly thought it was done, and I kind of accepted that Season 3's cliffhanger will never be resolved. But then, Daredevil got a cameo in a Spider-Man movie, and after a long humiliation ritual with appearances in some of the worst Marvel shows, Daredevil Born Again was finally announced. So here I was, hoping the new season will have a similar tone, feature the classic characters, and maybe, just maybe, it will be written as well as the original. Well, we did get some classic characters, but not really. We did get a similar tone, but not really. And the writing is...
I saved me. They were both out there for themselves.
Let's just say not even in the same ballpark. As I understand based on articles throughout the last few years, Born Again is a classic example of development hell and creative indecisiveness. The season was planned to be 18 episodes long, not really connected to the original Netflix show. It would be more episodic and less interconnected as it was before. But then everyone was fired, the Moon Knight guys took over and made a few episodes around the existing ones, which were likely heavily recut and remade. And the result is a season that is as consistent as the stock market lately.
Around the world, stock markets fell faster than a skydiver without a parachute.
With 9 episodes instead of 18, but at least featuring the original trio of Foggy, Karen and Matt Murdock, for about 15 minutes of screen time. But I digress, so without further ado, let's get into why the first season of Daredevil Born Again fails as a reboot, with spoilers as well, so you've been warned. But first I'd like to thank you for 600 subscribers. If you are interested in superheroes, science fiction and all things movies, consider helping me get to 1,000. So let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. The notion that Born Again will be a continuation of Season 3 with the original cast was bait. It was an afterthought, plain and simple. And that is not just because Foggy dies in the first 10 minutes. It's very clear the original show was not written with these characters in mind. So the best we get is glorified cameos of Karen, Foggy and the Punisher, except for the finale. That is not inherently a problem. While it feels kinda weird to bait the audience into the sweet nostalgia with the first episode showing the trio we've been waiting to see again for 7 years, only to have one of them killed immediately and get Karen away from the setting as well for most of the season, this could be a valid subversion of expectations if the new characters introduced would be similarly well written, or interesting, or likable at least. Netflix Daredevil had an amazing core lineup, and so many great side characters as well, from Ben Urich to Claire to Wesley to Agent Nadim and so on. Born Again has 0 characters who live up to that roster. None. And this is where the development hell really comes into play, as the original episodic vision for the show was not reimagined that much, and the mid-season features a bunch of characters who get killed just when they start to get interesting, and others whose storylines don't really go anywhere. The obvious examples are White Tiger and Muse. While White Tiger was kind of great, his death is predictable, as was his purpose of being a plot device, who's there to show Matt how corrupt the system is, moving him closer to putting the spandex suit on again. Muse, on the other hand, is a wet noodle of a villain. He's a blatant plot device who is disposed of in a few episodes. While the courtroom drama aspect of White Tiger was pretty well done and gave an opportunity to show just how good of a lawyer Matt is.
I'm a really good lawyer.
The Muse storyline is a mess. He's this incel artist guy who just so happens to be a client of Matt's love interest. Don't worry, I'll get to her in a second. And he also conveniently leaves all the right clues at the right place and the right time for Matt to find, who can show up at just the right time to intervene. It's just bad, it's lazy writing, the payoff is disappointing and comes too early.
That's what she said.
It goes to show how 9 episodes is just not enough to flesh out characters, especially when the 9 episodes have this many characters and villains and a completely irrelevant filler episode as well. The supporting cast quite literally taking Foggy and Karen's place as friend/colleague in Kirsten and as love interest in Heather is another deal breaker for me. While Kirsten is likable, sure, her on-screen presence is just forgettable and the show works without her. Heather, on the other hand, is just strange. She also becomes a plot device quite often, as she is apparently the therapist of every villain in New York. But more importantly, her and Matt's chemistry is just not there. At the very least, it's nowhere near the chemistry with Karen.
6 ball. Straight ahead, just real soft.
Or Elektra, or even Claire, and that romance was done in like 3 episodes. But we still grew more attached to her character than to Heather in a whole season. She's not only boring, but everything about her character is something we have seen before in Netflix Daredevil, done better. Like the obvious conflict of Matt hiding his secret identity and having a hard time balancing vigilante life with personal life. We've been there, done that. The conflict was resolved by the end of season 3, and we were waiting for where to next. Instead, we regress. Just like with the Matt trying to serve justice the right way as a lawyer and finally deciding to put on the mask again story. It's nothing new, but somehow that's the main story of this season, him being born again as Daredevil. Thing is, he was literally born again before, when he sacrificed himself in Defenders, except in season 3 when he comes back. He put down the mantle of not Daredevil but Matt Murdock, as in leaves the idea of a normal life behind in a crisis of faith, moral conundrums and personal ramifications that are all vastly superior to Born Again's writing. While Heather is a catalyst for these rehashed ideas, her low point is obviously the post-Muse fight between her and Matt, and the infamous I Saved Me scene.
Muse tried to kill you, Daredevil saved you.
I saved me. They were both out there for themselves.
It's all over. Heather. Hey, Heather.
I don't know what the deal is with the writers making Matt's love interests randomly annoying, or if this was a half-assed attempt from Disney to have a girl boss moment of some kind, or the new writers were purposefully making her look bad to eventually move Matt back to Karen, which is the more likely option. But it was enough for me to kind of hope Bullseye shoots her in episode 8. She's not a great character, not a fitting love interest, and she's a terrible psychologist who goes to super unprofessional personal gatherings with her clients. Fortunately though, Charlie Cox does get to shine in Born Again as well. He is Matt Murdock at this point, he portrays this character so well, and seeing how weak the supporting cast is, he still kind of carries this show and saves it from being bad. Even when he's in a badly written scene, he's charismatic, vulnerable, driven, he's everything Daredevil needs to be. Matt's motivations and background is dialed back a lot this season. But just how fleshed out his motivations were. He pulls off being a ninja, an orphan and a man of faith at the same time, a man of principle with a dark side which he fights constantly. This is again a reused, or you could say continued aspect of Born Again as well. The only difference is it's way less nuanced. We continuously get side-by-side scenes and parallels of Kingpin and Daredevil, to a point where it's hammering it in without much else to say really. It's the age-old problem of Matt walking a fine line between breaking the law for the greater good of others and lawlessness for the sake of retribution. It's interesting enough, and the actors carry the show hard, so I didn't have a big problem with Matt this season. His Catholic background was subdued a lot as well, with maybe a couple of mentions of his faith compared to entire complex storylines and important characters connected to his faith previously. But I wouldn't say this ruins his character. The other shining star of the show is, of course, Kingpin. Vincent D'Onofrio is brilliant as ever. I liked how between the weak mini-stories of White Tiger and Muse, Kingpin is a constant. His dedication to innovation by any means necessary, his devotion to Vanessa, his menacing presence and measured speech, imposing physique, are all pretty much here. I was very much interested in him as mayor, and one of the more underrated standouts in the show is his new pet right-hand man, Daniel. I thought he was a more interesting kind of morally grey side character. He was the only one who reminded me of OG Daredevil. I'd be interested to see a story where Daniel is slowly groomed into another loyal, Wesley-like character.
Do you really think I would put a loaded gun on the table where you could reach it?
I think the show would really have benefited from stripping away the Muse storyline completely and just focusing on Bullseye killing Foggy, Kingpin becoming mayor, the justice system not being enough, and how Matt navigates these issues as a more cohesive and maybe a bit longer season of television. While this story is kind of there in Born Again, it's constantly disrupted by the less interesting side stories, or the bank robbery episode, which was clearly another remnant of the old vision for this show, as it has no bearing on the main plot, which drags and suffers for it. It's a perfectly okay episode with some nice moments, an intriguing team of villains, but you can't just leave the plot on hold when you're only doing 9 episodes. That's not a lot. 9 episodes demand focus and an intense, cohesive, concise story. It's remarkable how big a difference there is between episodes 1, 8 and 9 compared to the rest. You could almost, I'm not saying completely, but you could almost remove episodes 2 to 7 and not lose much, as it feels like episode 8 just picks up the main plot where it was left off. And the production value as well, the cinematography, the setting, everything is miles better than the mid-season. I've never seen something like this before, a product that feels so chopped together. And it's conflicting because there are lots of positives in this show. There are some great sequences and character highlights. It's just all kind of watered down in a jarring way, with subpar scenes and episodes. The fight scenes are infrequent but serviceable. Episode 1 starts with a classic slow-moving long shot, highly choreographed sequence between Bullseye and Daredevil, and besides the low-quality CGI shots, it was well done, especially with the audio mix of Foggy's heartbeat slowing down. But the whole opening sequence feels like a red herring, especially in retrospect. It's as if the creators were like, okay, they want the old crew back, they want the long fight scenes back, they want to know what happened to Bullseye, like they were checking boxes so they could finally move on. Anyway, the other fight scenes were significantly more heavily cut, but that had always been the case. A couple of big budget long fights, and a bunch of more commercial action sequences per season. I think the balance of courtroom drama versus Daredevil action was fine in this season. I've seen people complaining how the show is boring because there aren't enough fights. I think the problem wasn't the amount of fights, it was the mediocre context of the story surrounding them. With that in mind, I don't think Daredevil is a lost cause, and that is mostly due to the finale. The last episode feels like a little tease of what this season was supposed to be. We finally have meaningful screen time from Punisher and Karen. Heather is basically out of the picture. The Kingpin is back holding the city hostage. Bullseye is out somewhere, lamenting his life. And Matt is with his crew on the back foot. He's the underdog, fighting his demons and the Punisher fan club. It's a great setup for a future story, but I can't help but feel disappointed that we waited 7 long years for a new season of Daredevil, only to get a glorified teaser season with weak characters, poorly written plotlines, and the finale that finally sets up a decent, interesting status quo. The whole season should have felt like the last 2 episodes, and the only reason I haven't lost hope completely is because apparently season 2 is being developed by the guys who made these episodes. In conclusion, I don't think Born Again works as a reboot. The lack of new ideas, the lackluster new characters, the shorter format, the weak writing are just too much to be salvaged by a couple of great actors. The potential is there for Daredevil to be great again. But this season was not something worth waiting 7 years for, and it failed to sell me the idea that the show is in good hands now, without a doubt. It's probably the best season of Marvel television to date, and in that sense a diamond in the rough. But that's not saying much. It's like saying The Force Awakens is the best Star Wars movie of the sequel trilogy. Sure, compared to Ass, it is, but it's not enough. Speaking of diamonds in the rough, Andor Season 2 is out soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel for coverage on that as well. I really hope they stick the landing because I loved the first season. But what did you think about Daredevil Born Again? Did it live up to your expectations after 7 years? Let me know in the comments below, and see you soon.